In his teenage years, Yusuf contemplated death, influenced by attending his uncle's funeral. Subsequently, he became curious about the concept of death in other religions. When studying Islam, he encountered many surprising aspects, even though Islam was his last chosen religion to explore at that time. What captivated him about Islam?
I was born in a Hindu Brahmin family, born in England, raised up between England and India. And so from the age of about 15, I started looking into what death means in other traditions and the afterlife. And being a Hindu, I looked into my own tradition first, and the whole idea of rebirth and karma and so on was something that I was looking into. And then I started looking into other religions, Judaism, Christianity. And one of the things that I always held on to was that there's lots of different paths. All these religions are fine as long as anyone takes a religion, and they're all reaching to God at the end. Until I came across Islam, and Islam was probably the last possible religion I would have been looking at, partly because in those days, now it's probably 10 times worse, but in those days they had a bit of bad publicity, and I remember reading a couple of Reader's Digest articles, which was the book that often used to have a few things about real life events, and they'd have these real life stories, and they'd often have a bad story of somebody being forced to wear the hijab, or anyway, cut a long story short. When I started looking at Islam, what struck me was it didn't appear what it should have appeared to be. So it wasn't, an Arabian religion 14 centuries ago, but Islam was kind of giving a more broader message. For starters, the Prophet Muhammad, who's, at least to my mind, seemed the founder of Islam, is not mentioned in the Quran, apart from 3 times. And the Quran's got a whole chapter on Mary. Well, she's not Arab, technically, in my mind. And then there's Abraham popping up, and Noah popping up, and Jesus popping up. And what's that got to do with, Arabia at that time? And then a different narrative started emerging. So the first narrative I had was there's lots of different paths, everyone's going to God. And then a different narrative emerged, which is God is one, and the essence of his path of submitting to that oneness is one. And he has been sending different messengers to each and every nation from the beginning of time until now. And Adam was the first. And that religion, for all intents and purposes, in Arabic could be called Islam, or that way could be called Islam, but that is the one path, that is the path of God. And it's broad enough to accommodate these various things. And when I struck that, it was kind of, whoa. Now this is a challenge. But then I've got this message saying, this is it, this is the truth, and this is just the final embodiment, but that truth has been coming from the beginning of time, and it will keep coming, because that truth is the message of the cosmos, that truth is the message that's being shown to you over and over and again. And so then it was a bit of a thing, that doesn't fit the Islam that I'm reading in Reader's Digest, or today they could just say the Islam that you see on television, or the Islam that is constantly being bombarded. It's a deeper Islam. It's the Islam of the soul. It's the Islam that, at some point it's like, I think I know this. And so that process, initially it was a kind of a, how do I debate with this? And I had a couple of friends at school who started to get more into their practice of Islam. And so I used to often debate with them women's rights and, violence in Islam and all my little things. And I was quite good with words, so I found that I would win the arguments, but when I left them and I went home, I would lose the debate. Because at some point I knew that I was winning with points, but there's a deeper level of conviction that had started to rise in my heart about what's being said.
After nearly a year of studying Islam, Yusuf has become convinced of its truth. However, there is still something that bothers him in his heart.
And then I think the biggest reason why there was a delay, which in hindsight I think was partly because I just didn't think it was possible. I didn't think someone born in a Hindu Brahmin family could actually become Muslim. It didn't seem possible to me. It was not something I could have entertained, because I didn't actually, I don't think I knew of any converts from Hinduism. So I couldn't imagine someone from Hinduism could become Muslim. And at least not in the background that I had. So it was a very relaxed, not very strong, Hindu type, but as is common to many, at least that kind of Hindu upper class Brahmin sort of environment, it's sort of like a very relaxed identity, shrouded on, like festivals and, just tight-knit family, very close, well off, not many problems. And then, why would you do that? Why would I convert? It was not something, it never came to me. Islam, I wouldn't say changed me, but is continually calling me to change and is changing me, because Islam is truth. Alhamdulillah.